Good morning, guys. Is this working well? Yeah, it's working. So thank you, Ajinomoto, and thank you for the organizing committee for inviting me to come here a little bit more to the East Coast to talk to you about some of the research that I've been doing in Illinois. So one of the things that I know we're going to switch gears a little bit, so I want you guys to get a little bit on the repro side of things. But every time I go out there, I come here and I talk to you guys and I talk to farmers or I talk to faculty and I ask them, hey, what do you guys want from this cow? So a cow just calved and it has the calf on the ground. What do you want from her? Everybody gets it right. Everybody all the time. So what we need to do is very clear. We just have to do what seems to be needed. So they want the cow to produce as much milk as it can. They want the cow to be healthy. And of course, they want that cow to get pregnant as soon as possible. And they understand that those things are going to bring money back to the table. That's what's going to make them profitable. Okay? So our job is fairly easy. It's just to follow this. Let's just do this. One of the things that you guys experience, I just want to put some numbers here that you guys know about it, the transition cow, okay? Going from the pre-fresh or a dry period going to lactation. It's a huge stress on the cow. And why is that? You guys can see there, this is the requirement that I'm putting there, putting in kilos. If you guys multiply by 2, basically, you're going to get in pounds, okay? So this is what this cow that I put the requirements that's what she's going to need in energy. So let's say 14, 15, and then there are mega cows per day, and then there is a jump after calving. Now, what cows usually can do, it's what I'm putting there. So usually cows can eat as much as they need in prepartum, and I would even say that they can eat even more than what they need, and that's bad. That's another type of conversation that we would have. But we know that the cow cannot eat as much as she needs after calving, and that leads to all the metabolic disorders that you know, and the big thing why we are talking about the transition period for over 20 years. It's not something new, right? You guys must be getting tired about it. Hey, just quit it. Just tell me how to fix this stuff. So we've been talking about 20 years. This is still very relevant. And one of the things is this. Cows, they cannot eat as much as they need. This is just an example on what's required by the cow in this first bar. What is going to the cow, or what she's consuming, and then how much of that is just going for milk. So milk is a big demand on the requirements of the cows. And as you know, milk is going up, cows are producing more and more milk. But a big thing on the cow, and I'm putting a cow 7 days in milk, that she's going to have a lot of demand for that milk, a lot of energy going there. Now, one thing that perhaps we forget a little bit, that you have energy. Remember that energy is not a nutrient. I cannot grab energy and just put in my software, hey, here it is, 20 megacalories of energy. Energy is built up of some things, right? So one of the things that we forget sometimes is that the protein side of things. So cows, they all have a requirement for protein. And one of the things that also happen, 7 days in milk, transition period, is that the cows have a requirement for metabolizable protein. They just cannot eat as much as they can. This is how much they consume, and this is how much is going to milk. So milk is a big drive for these requirements. So cows go in metabolizable protein, negative balance as well. We talk a lot about negative energy balance, that cows cannot eat as much, and then we have all those problems. So if I would ask you guys, what is driving that negative energy balance? What is driving that? Why cows experience that? And pretty much all the cows and now the farmers in all the farms, they're going to be experiencing that. Why is that? So some people would say, wow, my cows are so good. They produce so much milk. That's why I have all these problems in my farm. Some farmers are even proud of that. I have a big problem just because I have awesome cows. Guess what? No, that's not true. Look at this graph here. What I'm plotting here is the amount of negative energy balance, okay? More negative energy balance, I go down. And this is the amount of milk. So a cow with 90 pounds of milk has the same negative energy balance that a cow that has 50 pounds of milk. So I increase milk and has nothing to do with negative energy balance. If there was something, this is how the graph would look like. As I increase milk production, negative energy balance goes down. So it has nothing to do with milk. So if the farmer is proud about his cows producing a lot of milk, and that's why they're skinny, they don't get pregnant, and they have a lot of problems, just change his mind. Just show this graph and say, you're full of something. Okay, but not, milk is not the answer for it. Now you may say, okay, you're just talking about yield. But milk is more than just the volume. How about the components of the milk, fat and protein? Okay, let's look at the graph. What does it show? Same thing. Same thing. So what do you guys think is driving negative energy balance? Exactly. This is what happens. If your cows can eat, they are going to be in more, they're going to be in less negative energy balance. And that's one of the things that we fight, and that's a good fight to have, is having farmers measure, having an assessment, an idea on how much the cows are eating. So dry matter intake is very, very important. I want to make that point very clear here because we can talk about a lot of things. If the cows are not eating, all goes down. So we need to have an assessment, especially in the transition period, how much your cows are eating before and after calving. Because we can prevent a lot of the negative energy balance. We can have healthy cows. The other concept that you guys know is that milk production by cow is going up, and apparently and we are putting here conception rate, has been going down throughout the years. And then maybe around 2009, we decided, hey, you know, this daughter pregnancy rate, we may check and put in the bull proof how fertile the daughters of that bull is, and then now we are picking up. We are getting a little bit better on those genetic traits for reproduction, for fertility. But that's the whole thing. Now, that's another concept that you may have, that, okay, cows are producing a lot of milk, that's why they are not reproducing well. And what I'm trying to point here, this is an association, this is not a relationship of causation. And one number or research that I want to show you is this one by Santos, a lot of cows, okay, more than 6,000 cows. And what he's doing here is comparing cows among herds that produce a lot of milk or fewer or lower milk. So we have the lower milk here, let's say 32 kilos, 60 pounds, and you have cows that are producing 100 pounds. Okay, on those herds, steamer fed in California. Now you can see that cows that are cycling by 60 days, what's the percentage? It seems like cows that produce more milk, they're even cycling more than cows that are producing less milk. Now if you go see here, cows that were pregnant at 58 days, perhaps the same story is going on. Of course that here, there is a little bit of confounding that maybe better farms have the most producing cows, so there's a confounding that could be the management and everything else. But saying that the herd has high milk production, and because of that they have poor reproduction, that's not true. Milk production, high milk production, and good reproduction can cope with each other. That's possible, okay? And this is one way of us talking about that. The other thing that I want to challenge you guys to think about, some of the things that we take for granted. And this is one of the things, embryonic loss. And if you go to farms and you check their dairy comb, PC Dart, any file that they have, any software, you're going to see that that is happening. But we need to be aware of this because during this presentation, I think we're going to have some strategies to improve that. And this is something that we call it physiological or normal. And this is putting together a bunch of trials, okay? And they have cows here, and they check those cows at 30 days after AI, and then they check those cows in different dates, okay? But usually 15 days later. So at 30 days and then 45 days. And what happened? Some of those cows, they were not pregnant anymore, and we are calling that embryonic loss. And look at this. It goes from anywhere from 10 to 20%. So roughly, we say that 15% embryonic loss is normal. 15%. So you guys have a lot of trouble getting the cows in heat, doing all the OVSync and all the synchronization protocols, get her pregnant, and in 15 days, 15% of that is gone. So I think that's one area that we should be working on. And there's a lot of factors associated with it, but amino acid strategy, feeding amino acids, is something that can help with that. And I'm going to show you in the end. But 15%, we say it's normal. The other thing that we need to be aware of it is that diseases, any diseases happening with cows during the transition period, are going to impact reproduction. And that just makes sense, and they're putting a number here. So this research, Eduardo now there is at Guelph University, Animal Science Department, what he was doing was comparing healthy cows, okay? That means, for example, they have no clinical disease. If they had one clinical disease, or more than one clinical disease, mastitis, RP, metritis, hypocalcemia, milk fever, and he saw that, yes, there is a difference. If the cows get sick with one of those things, they're going to have worse reproduction. On the subclinical kind of things, like BHP, high BHP, not so much ketosis, but high BHP, if they have subclinical hypocalcemia, they also, if they have 2 of those at least, they also had an impact on reproduction. So all cows that get sick, they're going to probably experience poor reproduction, or they have a lower conception rate. Make sense? That makes sense, right? You're just putting numbers and research to everything that you're saying here. This is very simple. You want to get cows pregnant? Just look at this. 7 points that impact directly pregnancy. Today in this presentation, we're going to talk about 4 of them. So we're going to talk about body condition score. How does that may impact pregnancy? We're going to talk about the ovulation of that follicle and how can we impact the follicle that the cow is going to be ovulating. The other thing is, and I want you guys to pay attention to this, having a large embryo. So at some point, the cow is cycling every 21 days, 23 days. Something needs to tell the cow, hey, I'm here. I'm pregnant. Please don't cycle again. Who is doing that? One of the things is the embryo. And the size of the embryo is associated with how much signaling that can tell. And we call interferon tau. That's the thing that's going to be sending the signaling to say, don't cycle again. And then at some point, that embryo is going to attach to the uterus, and this is going to happen. Okay? So the embryo is going to attach to the uterus, and then the pregnancy is going to develop. So all those stages are very important, a very important communication between the embryo and the cow through the uterine tissue. This is what I think we should be talking. So if we had 20 years ago thought about this, that, hey, let's do those transition period trials, but instead of stopping at 30 days after calving, or 21 days, or 28, if we just saw, hey, let's see the impact of this on if these cows are getting pregnant or not, I think we could be in a different stage. So I think all the new things that we are proposing, or the strategies during the transition period, you guys need to evaluate how is that affecting repro of a cow, the repro of the herd. I'm pretty sure if you go to a herd that has average days in milk to 150, okay? So that lactation curve is all shifted here by the average of the cows. Average days in milk to 150, you can be the best nutritionist in the world. It's going to be very hard to increase a little bit of milk on that herd, right? So you guys need to have at least some numbers and say, hey, you have a repro problem. Let's talk with other people. Instead of trying to say, yeah, I can increase your herd by 10 pounds. If it is at 250, I don't think you're going to make it. Now, if your herd is at 150, 180, average days in milk, that's a different story. Now we have much more chance to show all your skills on nutrition. So we need to be aware of this repro side of things, even so we don't get hurt, even promising bunch of milk to the farms. One thing that you guys all have there, hopefully a little page there, okay? So I'm going to take here 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and I want you guys to write there, okay? That's your page. You can keep it. But I want you guys to write there body condition score that you recommend for farmers to have on those stages. It's not what you'd like to be. It's not what it is at the farm right now. I want you guys to say, hey, I would like the farmers to have body condition, cows body condition score at drying off this much. I want you guys to write down at calving what you think, and at breeding what you think. Just write it down, 15 seconds. Okay, so you guys put your numbers there, body condition score in there. We usually are doing 1 to 5, right? Just put it there, let it aside. And let me ask you another question here. What happens, okay, what happens if cows calve too fat? What happens with body condition score throughout the lactation? And this is the graph. So imagine that I have a cow that is calving fat. What's going to happen with body condition score throughout the lactation? It's going to go down, right? So that's what happens. They did this research in the UK a few years ago, and that's what happens. Body condition score go down as the cows, if the cows are having with high body condition score. Now, what happens if the cow calve thin? If they calve with low body condition score? Okay, so now one thing that perhaps is a little bit less intuitive, guess what? Cows increase body condition score. Mind-blowing, right? Crazy. Yeah. They eat more and they produce more milk as well. I'm not telling you guys here, please, I'm not telling you guys that all cows should calve thin. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that perhaps the 3.5, 3.75 body condition score that we think, we need to revisit that. And the point is this. If you guys ever heard, for example, that, oh, our cows are calving thinner now, they're thinner now. So one of the things that they did, hey, let's compare the cows from the 80s and the cows from the 2000s, okay? I used to say, hey, there's old studies here, but then some people start getting offended. So I'm saying from the 80s and cows from the 2000s. And what they say is this, the body condition score change, okay, 0, and what was the body condition score at calving? So if the cows don't change the body condition score, in the older studies, the body condition score at calving was 249, and right now it's 210. So what happens is this, that's why cows are getting thin. We changed the genetics of the cows, and they are not putting as much into body condition score, and they are putting, guess what? Perhaps more in milk. Okay, so that's a whole discussion we can have here. But I think we need to revisit a little bit. And that's why I'm saying that I'm not telling you guys to have thin cows, because I think the thin cows, they are not the solution, but I think we just miss what is wrong with them. That's my point. So this is a method that we can measure how much protein or amino acids are coming from the muscle. So 3-methylhistidine, okay? So before calving, if I have cows, if high body condition score, medium or low, that doesn't matter. They're mobilizing all the same. But remember, the amount of protein they need before calving is not as much as after calving with the milk. So now when it goes up, when it goes through lactation, you can see that the cows that have a lower body condition score, they are mobilizing more protein. So the cows are using the protein coming from muscle, and we don't think that is a good thing to happen. But however, we have no tests. We have nothing easy for you guys to say, yeah, this cow is with a problem because she's mobilizing too much protein from the muscle. Like you have ketosis, that you have your BHB meter. Yeah, she has subclinical ketosis. She was too fat. She's dropping body condition score. So that's one of our challenges, but that's happening. And that's, I think, one of the things that we need to understand more. But there is some sort of using that protein from muscle to provide some of that energy that is missing. But now, what is that important? We need more protein. That's something that we still need to keep answering. But coming back to your page there that you put your numbers. Actually, I don't care about the numbers you put it there. Some people just get pissed. Why I did that then? Just throw away. That's the point. I want you guys now, you can see there is these lines here. What is the difference if you do this one minus this one, put it here, this one minus this one, and then you put it here? What's the difference? If you put 4, 4, 4, that's fine. You got a 0 difference. Your cow's body condition score change is 0. That's awesome, and I would say impossible. okay? Impossible. But if you can keep below 0.5, you are a champion. You are a champion. That's very hard. Below 0.75, it's achievable. It's hard, but it's achievable. If you go to 1 or more than 1, you are losing a lot of milk and a lot of repro. And we could have a whole other discussion on body condition score and research supporting all the impact of losing body condition score. What does that mean? But if you can keep at 0.75, good. 0.5, awesome. But that's simple things that we can check with time and see the patterns, how it's going up and down. And this is going to have a lot of challenges on, depending on the farmer. Do they have good sources of energy? Do they have good sources of protein? It depends a lot on each farm, okay? But the change is the thing. And I even put in a Hordes Dairyman article. If you guys want, you can go there. I can send to you any information on this presentation that you want. Send me an email. I'll be more than happy to send you the research or the paper on it. And this is a work done by Paul Fricke's group and Milo in Wisconsin. And what they saw here, the body condition score associated with pregnancy. And this is going from calving to 21 days in milk. Cows that gained body condition score got extremely pregnant faster than cows that maintained it or lost body condition score. And the range on body condition score here is very small. It's from 2.8 to 3.25. So if they maintain this, if they gain a little bit of body condition score, of course, meaning a lot of other things. Probably they didn't get sick, a lot of other things, but they got pregnant much faster, okay? So body condition score change, I think it's even more important than the numbers that you guys have there. This is some of our recommendations for dry cows, where I think you guys should be. And I know we guys talk, and Dr. Hutchins touched about that in the morning. I mean, we're still in the morning, early morning. Crude protein, right? That's one of the recommendations. It's very hard. It's very sticky in our mind, crude protein. But I want to challenge you guys, and we recommend here this much crude protein. But who here remembers crude fiber? Who remembers going to a farm and formulating for crude fiber? Hey, your diet has this much crude fiber. Dr. Hutchins? Okay. Well, some people, Chuck Schwab here. So if you remember that, we don't use that for a reason. But actually, if you go to the west side, California, almond hulls are paid by crude fiber. So there's people there from Cal Poly, and this is a research that one of my PhD students were involved when he was there, is showing, hey, we have all this crude fiber here, all the same from all these samples of almond hulls, and guess what? They have totally different digestibility. They're going to give totally different results when you go to the cow. So say, hey, maybe we need to consider this ADF, NDF stuff to talk about almond hulls as well. Maybe you're not measuring the best thing. So today, to buy almond hulls, you are based on crude fiber. High or low, that's how the price is done. And they're suggesting, hey, we should look at that. So that's today. But you guys don't go to farms. You're talking about ADF, NDF, UNDF, 240, and NDFD, and all this stuff for a reason. I think we're going to get to the point that we are trying to move to this thing here that perhaps we should be at already. Tell me metabolizable protein. Yeah, figure out the model and tell me how much you're giving to your cows, and I want more than 1,200. But I also want to know, out of that, what is your methionine and lysine profile on that? Because I know that's the two main limiting amino acids. That's what you know right now. Perhaps in the future we're going to have a few more, but that's what we know now. So that's important. This is a slide that I stole from Chuck Schwab, but it is showing something that you guys already know. If I feed methionine, if I feed lysine, cows are going to increase in milk, and milk protein is going to go up. We know that. That's going to happen. Our herd at the University of Illinois, we're milking 150 cows. Our butter fat test is 3.8. Our protein test is 350. Hosting cows, 3.5. Guess what? Do you think we are feeding amino acids? You betcha. You betcha. Methionine and lysine. Yeah, we have that rumen-protected amino acids in our diet. And that's how we get it. Now, the other question that we had, remember I told you about that embryonic losses. Can feeding amino acids work with that? Can that be improved? So this work here, what they did was they had this rat embryos growing in a media, okay? So you put the oocyte and you put the semen there, and as the embryo is coming up, what is the media that is involved with that? Like in vitro fertilization. Okay, we can even go to the women's side of things, and well, what is in that media that is growing all those babies? But let's keep with rats for now. And what they did was, let me change that media and see what are the results in the embryo. So what they did is like, hey, I just get cow serum that has a lot of juice, a lot of good stuff there, and I let that embryo grow. What happens? 100% of those embryos were abnormal. There was a problem there, and this is how much protein, meaning how much the embryo grew. Now, let's do something else, and let's just add amino acids and vitamins to that cow serum. Boom, zero abnormal, sorry. Everybody okay, and the embryo grew nice. Now, let's change a little bit, and let's put amino acids to that. Again, no problem with the embryos. Now, how about if I just put vitamins? Whoop. Now we have a bunch of problematic embryos again. Not so much protein. Okay, you know what I'm getting to this. How about if I put amino acids with no methionine on it? Boom. Everybody abnormal. Now, how about if I just put the methionine? Oh yeah, nobody abnormal. So every time I had a methionine involved with that embryo, okay, I had that embryo growing perfectly, or I didn't have abnormal. So that's why, hey, methionine seems to be important for embryonic development. But that was in rats, right? We are talking about cows here, dairy cows. Can we do that? So that's one of the challenges. When should I feed it so I could have the best return on those aspects? So can we do that? Where should we do that? One of the concepts that we had, okay, is that if I do before calving, perhaps I can prompt that, but I really want those cows to get pregnant, and as a result of that supplementation. One of the things that I'm going to show, so this is a research, okay? What they did is pretty hard research to do because you have to kill the animals at each time point. So what they have is they have cows that were cycling, heifers that were cycling, and heifers that were pregnant. So the cow got pregnant. At 7 days after getting pregnant, they killed the cow. They got the uterus, they aspirate the fluid, and they measure the amino acids on it. Okay? And then they compare with cows that were just cycling. There was just normal cycling. This is the days of the cycling. So you can see, for example, and what the assessment we have is that if there is a lot of that amino acid there, perhaps is needed for something, right? So we can see that around pretty much blastocyst or the embryo stage, or even a little bit later when the blastocysts hatch and then gets into the uterus, seems like the lysine is not where it's needed. However, when it needs to be implementing in the uterus, and that's going to be around day 16, 17, 19, when that embryo is going to be attached to the uterus, now it seems to have a need for that lysine concentration to go up. If we compare that with methionine, seems like methionine is involved even in the early stages, okay? So there seems to be different strategies. At some moment, we may need one type of amino acids, the cow uterus, and at some other moments may need a different type of amino acids. And that's why all of this is part of our requirement, right? We cannot feed just one. We need to feed all of them. We are trying to figure out which one is doing what. And the other thing that why we should feed before calving, in my opinion, we don't have a hard date on that, but we know that the follicle that you guys are going to be breeding at 60 days in milk, that follicle came from at least 90 days before. And that's why sometimes heat stress you have today and your cows perform poorly 2 months later. That's why, because your ovary got impacted in the summer, but then a little bit later, that's when that follicle is coming. It's all crappy follicle. So that's why we think that's a good match. 3 days, 30 days, or dry period. And then when you get into the voluntary waiting period, you're ready to do that. So we wanted to have an assessment on follicles and also embryo. So this is a research that we did. We got 72 cows, 3 diets, pre-fresh, high, fresh cow diet, and a high diet. And we fed 4 treatments, okay? So we fed methionine. We had all lysine, but we also had blood meal in this diet as well. So our inclusion of lysine was not that much. It was just to get the balance and get the requirement right. And you have choline, we have the mix where you had choline and methionine, and then you had a control. So I'm going to call it methionine and control. We didn't find much with the mix of the choline, so I'm going to report on those, the methionine one. This is a diet, okay? And I'm showing here pretty common Midwest diet, nothing special with the diet. And then this is what it read for. Again, nothing very calling, just to have it there so you guys can see that's kind of a typical Midwest diet. One of the things that we were expecting, and that happens, cows that ate the methionine inclusion, they had more milk and they had more protein, as you can see below. So that's expected. You feed the rumen-protected methionine and lysine, you're going to have more protein, you're going to have more milk. One of the things also that we have was that these cows, okay, they were now eating a little bit more before calving and after calving as well. So maybe that's some of the benefits that are where it's coming from. It seems like these cows, they're being able to eat more as well. Now, one of the things, eating more, giving more milk, and perhaps you guys get challenged. We were even kind of chatting about this yesterday. Any tough time that comes to you guys, what happens? You know, the farmer may look at the list, the most expensive thing goes, right? Sometimes happens like that, right? And then you guys have to say, yeah, but this one brings a lot of milk protein. That's your paycheck. A lot of milk, that's your paycheck. So you guys have to remember and tell him that things are not black and white. There is one thing, and again, Dr. Hutchins touched about that is called this. What is this? What is the word that defines this? And the word that defines this, from where all my students get their information, Wikipedia, it's efficiency, okay? There is a big difference in being effective and being efficient. So you guys have to remember that we need to be efficient. If I put more money and I get more money back, that's fine. That's what we want. That's the business we want. We want to be more profitable. I don't care input and outputs, but I need to care about efficiency. So this is the difference between being efficient and being effective, okay? So I'm going to have a video here. It's going to be very clear for you guys. Do you guys know the trust fall? I didn't know anything about it, so I had to research and understand. So trust fall, you guys understand. So this is what these two girls are playing, okay? And this is how it goes about.
Close your eyes and just fall down, okay? Don't worry.
Okay, then Lauren's going to catch you.
Close your eyes. Okay.
Okay, it's called the trust fall. Okay, trust fall. Ready, set, go.
Not efficient, but effective. Yeah, she played. Very effective. She played from A to B, but how you get from A to B, that's the point. So that's for you guys remember. Talk about efficiency. Show the video to the farmer and say, hey, we need to keep this stuff. Okay? So we went a little bit deep and we published this. Again, I can send you all the stuff you need here, but we want to look at how the supplementation is affecting the cows. And we are looking at the follicles, okay? So we are following these cows starting at 7 days, how the first ovulation was going to occur. And in half of the cows, we said, okay, at 16 millimeters, average for the hosting to ovulate, we aspirate all the juice from that follicle. That's what we did, pretty much. So this is a follicle for you guys. We have in the follicle very simple two cells, this granulosa cells and theca cells. So when I aspirate that follicle, I can spin and I can have all these cells over there. And then we do all fancy things like gene expression to see what is being expressed there. But I just want to remind you, again, this is not going to be on the quiz, but this is what's going on for the hormones that are inside the follicle. So estradiol, this one here, that's pretty much what the follicle is filling in, and then it pops and then ovulates. That's what's going on. And that's why cows, they show estrous signs, because that estrogen, estradiol, is coming up high in the blood, and then she's showing all those signs coming from the follicle. Follicle is growing. So all these enzymes here, we can check on those cells. And what we saw that these cows that were supplemented, they have a higher, supplemented with provided with methionine, they were a higher expression of this enzyme that is responsible for putting estradiol inside the follicle. So, whoa, maybe methionine has a role on this pathway, and putting more estradiol inside the follicle would be good for everyone. And what we also did, we measure how much of those amino acids were inside the follicle. So we measured the methionine concentration. Yes, it was higher. lysine concentration was no different. And histidine was a tendency for that. But we could talk about this later on. But remember, you have limiting amino acids. When you fulfill one, maybe another one starts showing up, right? But this is a different conversation here. And we also measure in the blood. So again, Dr. Hutchins talked about bioavailability. I'm feeding this stuff. Is that working or not? That's the way to do it. But guess what? $100 a sample to figure this out. $100. We'd love to have a cow side test that I can figure out what is the concentration, but that is not there. But you guys need to know if whatever you're feeding is getting to the cow. That's important. So this was the serum concentration. As you feed, you get more throughout. And this is the lysine concentration. And I want to highlight here, okay, so again, we are not feeding to the full potential, and we had blood meal. But you can see that at some points, those cows were having more. Perhaps this is a little bit linked to intake as well. But I want to think that these two peaks here, they also may be related with blood meal. And that's not the objective of this talk. You guys know about that. Dr. Van Amberger has a lot of information on variability of blood meal. Okay? So perhaps you're just counting on that lysine, and that lysine was not coming in. So guess what? The cow didn't get it. Didn't show up in the blood. So perhaps we should have less or no blood meal and more amino acids. Of course, this is research. We'll have to play a little bit more on the economic side of things as well. But there is variation. Don't forget about that on the sources that we are giving. And I think in research, we'd have to characterize that a little bit more to start telling you guys a little bit more of this story. How about the uterus? What we did was we can put these papa smear brushes inside the uterus of a cow, and then we can figure out the number of white blood cells, we call here PMNs, inside that uterus to have a reference on endometritis. And guess what? In the beginning, at 15 days, cows that had the methionine, they had a higher PMN. But when it happened to 72 days, that was switched. And that's the other point that I make. Inflammation, is it good or bad? I don't think we in academia do a good job telling you that. We always can explain both ways. Is it good or bad? I think we always need to put in a perspective of days in milk for lactating cows. In the beginning, yes, I want white blood cells to get rid of all that crap that is coming with the calving. When I'm breeding the cow, no, I don't want white blood cells that can damage my semen and interfere with my conception. So in the beginning, I think it's good. At 72 days, I don't think it's good anymore. And actually, Dr. LeBlanc, he kind of hypothesized that. So this is not research, it's just like a model. But he was thinking, hey, these healthy cows here that are going to develop some uterine infection, the healthy cows, the ones that don't, seems like they respond more in the beginning, but then later on, they quit. They don't need to do it. And some of the other cows that get sick, they're always out, or the cows that don't even try. They're always low. Okay, so seems to be that sense that if you give the cow what she needs, the requirement, methionine, lysine, she's going to respond better in the beginning, and then at breeding, you guys have that lower. This is also showing on work from Dr. Lors. This is his student Zizi, now at South Carolina, Clemson, showing that the neutrophils, the white blood cells, are working better. Not just you have those cells there, but they are working better. They're grabbing more bacteria, and they are killing them better. They're bursting better, okay? How about the information in the embryos? One of the things, there's another paper out there, is that we saw that there's more lipid in the embryos, 7-day embryos, blastocyst. Here you see the picture. Collaboration with Dr. Peter Hansen in Florida. You see that it has more fat. What does that mean, having more lipid? I go back to another trial done in the University of Wisconsin with Milo, that they fed or not methionine to cows, and they get the embryos and they saw gene expression transcriptomics. So they say everything that is up, everything that is down. And they found that 30 genes were increased or decreased. There was just 2 genes that were increased with methionine inclusion. In those 2 genes, one, we don't know what is it. It's not characterized yet. That's what happens sometimes with transcriptomics. We don't even know what you're doing or amplifying. But also there was this guy here, a polypoprotein, that was increased. The only thing that we can say that was increased in those embryos that were fed methionine. And guess what? This is the protein, right? Pretty important for lipid transport and signaling in the cow. So remember I told you, perhaps these amino acids are doing just more than milk protein. This is some of the things that we are seeing now. Last trial that I want to show to you guys here, again, from a group in Wisconsin, more in a commercial setting. So they had two groups of cows where they fed methionine supplement as a top dress, or they did not fed, and that was the control group. A lot of work to do this. Okay, and they fed from 30 days until 128 days in milk. So they would go there and feed that to the cows, the top dress. This is the top dress you can see that was diluted in distiller's grain. And what I want to call your attention to is this. They had animals, primiparous, multiparous. They have quite a good number of animals for doing that type of trial. And this is what came up pretty much from the research. You can see that in primiparous, I'm showing you the loss of pregnancy, so embryonic death, from day 28 to 61. In the primiparous, there is no difference, but look the difference in the multiparous. So the cows that had the inclusion of methionine, they had lower embryonic death than the cows that didn't get it. Now, you guys already know, if I tell you that that herd has a 19% embryonic death, that's the control, you're going to say, yes, it's normal. We just saw in the first slides, 15, 20%, that's normal. But is it normal if we can reduce by this much, just by supplementing what the cow needs, amino acids, methionine? So what other things that they did, I can get a picture of the uterus, and this is the embryo inside the uterus. I can see the volume of that embryo. And I can see here that, again, one of the reasons perhaps the cows didn't get pregnant, guess what? There was a difference. The control cows had a smaller embryo than the methionine cows. Remember, hey, this is needed to send the sign, hey, I'm pregnant, don't cycle again. These cows were signaling probably less than these cows. That's one of the things that happening. So we come up, is this lipid inside the embryo, out of our research, needed for the embryo to grow in those early stages? Is that a source of energy? We think lipids as bad, but that's part of the nature for a reason. And usually it's to provide energy, or it could be just signaling through the membranes. Remember, I have a lot of fat in the membranes. Now, from the Europe group that did kill a bunch of animals to figure out the uterine fluid, maybe lysine concentration is very important at these days, not so much in the early stages of pregnancy. We don't know that yet. That's things that we are just thinking about it. So in summary, I think intake is still a big deal, and we need to fight. If it needs to be a shovel every week, and we figure that out once a week, that's fine. Let's start with it. But we need to start. We need to figure out, knowing how much our cows are eating. If we feed the products, rumen-protected lysine methionine, that should show up, okay, in the blood. Perhaps should show up in the serum as well of follicular fluid, but that's a little bit more depending on signaling, but in the blood for sure. I think feeding what the cow needs, and I'm talking about methionine lysine, is going to improve the quality. This is kind of a big one, okay? But this is some of the concepts that we just put together. Usually you guys ask, or farmers ask about it. This is our guidelines, what we used on these diets here, type of Midwest diet. So if you ask, oh, how much methionine and lysine you fed, then you're going to see here the grams and everything else. That what we were providing on those trials. Perhaps in a different diet, that needs to be changed. Again, you guys need to use a model to figure out how much you need to supplement. I wish it was simple that I could feed corn silage, rumen-protected amino acids, and that's it. We are feeding cows, but it's not like that yet. There's a commercial, there's a price to it, so we need to figure that out, okay? And if I could suggest you guys to keep track of two things, pregnancy rate, more than 20%, guys. Ask, if you don't know anything about it, talk to the vet and say, I want to have a preg rate every time I go to the farm, because that's going to impact your work. And guys, 20%, the average in the US is 17%. Herds that are getting awards, herds, repro, best herd, it's at 30-something%. So 30 pounds of milk, that's even one of the talks that Paul Freaky does a lot. 30 pounds of milk with 30% preg rate is doable. A lot of people are doing that, so let's move that bar. If this is not happening, I would check this thing here. How many cows you're getting pregnant at the first breeding? I bet you're not getting 40% or more if your preg rate is low. And then comes a lot of transition period, a lot of things that you can help the farmer. And embryonic death, just keep track of it. Vet or blood testing at 30 days and at 45, 60 days. What's going on in that farm? How is it changing throughout the year? You guys can help that with nutrition, giving what the cow needs, the requirements. With that, I would like to thank you guys, and I'm going to be around today. I'll have something to talk about this afternoon, and I think we're going to have this question session after Jessica's talk. So, thank you.